Hey everyone, it's Tom Seymour from VHS Massacre. Just wanted to do a little update. So obviously, American Expendables, feature-length documentary about martial arts stars from the 80s and 90s, like Cynthia Rothrock and Billy Blanks. That's out streaming. Seems to be doing pretty well. Word's getting around. It just concluded its festival run. If you look here, we see one of the biggest festivals it got into was Requiem Fear Fest in Montreal, which was kind of a big deal. When I finish a feature film, I don't do this for every film, but for most films I do. When I complete the festival run, I will do a poster, and I'll do like a festival run poster. It's helpful for the film because people can see some of the festivals you got into. It's a little for me as well. It's to sort of get my head around how well the festival, how well the film did in the festival run. It looks cool. Makes your film look like it passed muster to some degree because it got into festivals. If you think about it, if you entered 10 festivals and you got into 3, you'd be doing really good, right? And that's so with this one, we managed to get into about half the festivals we entered. They were highly focused towards festivals that we think we had a good shot on, ones that maybe we performed well in the past. For this festival, I'd say the two biggest ones were Montreal Requiem Fear Fest and Weekend of Fear in Germany. These were pretty big. And then for awards, the biggest award was the Gold Telly from the Telly Awards, which is a awards competition that started in the 1970s to cater to small market broadcast. So sort of like the answer to the regional Emmy was like the Telly Award, but they would award things like commercials and documentaries and stuff like that. Then they branched out into feature films and internet and stuff like that. So it's Telly's is a lot of fun to enter, and you actually have a chance of winning. Like unlike the Emmys, where like a dozen people in the whole world win. The Tallies is based upon the merit of the actual individual piece. So if you really made a kick-ass piece, you actually have a decent chance at winning. So anyway, we won the gold, which is the top award. And then one of my favorite festivals is the Independent Horror Movie Awards. I love entering that one. So we won Best Editing there, which was that was pretty cool for me. Because I obviously direct and edit a lot of these films. Underground Indie Film Festival. That's actually in Florida, and we won Best Documentary there. That was a pretty big deal. And then Tim Kulik, who did the score for it, which is, it's essential to the documentary. He got a Best Sci-Fi and Horror Action Film Festival. He got a Best Score for that, and also Best Music at the top Indie Film Awards. So Tim, producer and composer, did very well. Actually, he's in it too. It's some of the banter back and forth about the films in the North American Pictures catalog. That's actually Tim Kulig. So anyway, this is the poster. It's something to consider if you've done a festival run. If you don't have distribution yet, this could be a cool thing to do. Write all your official selections, all your nominations. If you look, let me shrink this down a little bit. So if we look at the whole thing, you can see it says winner of 6 Indie Film Awards and 14 official selections. So it's just kind of a fun thing to have. It's almost a press trailer. This wouldn't be a bad idea to have if you did the festival run first and then you're seeking distribution after. Great thing about the festival run is that no one cares how many festivals you got rejected from. if you won one or two, you're doing great. And those are, the selections and the nominations and the wins are what you put on your festival poster. This is very different from seeking out reviews. That's something I learned the hard way, a very hard way. If you don't have distribution for your film, it may not be a good idea to seek out reviews, because if they are even lukewarm, it can kill your deal. And that's exactly what happened with London Betty. It just so happened the first review we got was like average, and everyone looked at that review in distribution and they were just lukewarm on it. And it sucked because the subsequent reviews were pretty good after that, and it did win some awards. So just know, like, a festival run is a sort of protected way to get your film some credentials, So that's what we did for American Expendables. That's the festival poster. I did put out this alternate version of Atlanta College Prophets called Fountain of Death, Black and Chrome edition. Black and Chrome edition is obviously that's like a homage to Mad Max Fury Road came out with Black and Chrome edition. The director Miller, I think it's George Miller, he wanted his original Mad Max. He always thought it would have been better in black and white, because just having a little less information in that would have kind of solidified the post-apocalyptic world better, because in that film the budget wasn't there. I mean, by the time you get to Road Warrior, thing's a masterpiece, right? So, and Mad Max is wonderful, but he was just saying, if you had a low budget, black and white is not a bad idea for solidifying the aesthetic of a film. It smooths out a lot of the things. If you shot on video and the color information is not very good and you're remastering, you can do it in black and white much better. And as a matter of fact, the version I posted through VHS Massacre Films, which is YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I just did the postings there. I didn't do a proper film distribution through like MVD, like an independent film studio, because this was just a little side project. And those other films, if you want to see them, Land of College Prophets, the full versions being distributed through them. But I was happy to see that pretty quickly the reviews are in the thousands if you add up the postings across all media. So this was kind of fun because I was able to sort of change the beginning and re-edit some things, pull out some narration. And so I do have to say, this is kind of like a fun little thing to do. This was shot on the DVX 100. So we shot in probably 2004. And so this was sort of upscaled to 1080p. So, it's not going to look perfect. But, it's funny, like the whole black and white, converting it actually makes it, I think, look a little more like actual film. But that camera was a digital camera, but it shot 24 frames per second. That was pretty new at the time, to have a prosumer, like a $3,000 camera that could shoot at 24 frames. That was something where we were able to, save up and get people to invest a little, and we were able to just buy the camera. So we shot a few films with that same camera. Yeah, Fountain of Death it's funny, that film, Land of College Prophets, if you look at the IMDb score on it, now it's terrible. It's like 3 point something. But when it came out, it was like a trauma-style backyard sort of superhero film. It was fresh on Rotten Tomato. Almost all reviews were positive, and people kind of liked it. It was back in kind of early digital video era time, when people were a little more open-minded to kind of experimental cinema and stuff like that. And I think what happened is not every film ages well. And this one, when we re-released it maybe about 5 years ago, people just, I think at that point, people really were not down with the sort of lo-fi, grainy type of thing. And maybe this stuff just seemed a little trite at that point. But at the time, it was actually really successful. I think it won 8 awards. And we distributed through York Entertainment. So this is the first film where we signed a deal with York Entertainment. It was in all the Hollywood videos and all the movie galleries. And then the earliest form of Netflix, which was the mail-in, it was actually on Netflix. So this was like a big deal for us at the time. And eventually it was kind of slow going, but it did, to some of us, it led to other jobs because, believe it or not, having a legitimate release out in the market was, it was a bigger deal back then than probably it is now. And that being said, this is kind of like a low budget action film, and at the time, action films were pretty hot, and it was basically York could pick this up for nothing. We signed a deal where they would give half the revenue, but they went out of business before any of that happened. So we never got a single dime for this. Probably spent about $12,000. So that sort of lost our shirts on that, and that would be a theme that continued to happen, where just never getting payouts for the film. So you do have to be careful about signing bad deals. Though contemporary independent film distribution, if you sign a deal with a company, you have to be prepared to know that, like, if they say, like, let's say if we make $20,000 back, then we'll give you 50% of what we make beyond that, because that's their marketing budget and all that stuff. That keeps the lights on and pays their employees and all that stuff. It's understandable if you never hit that mark. So there are films that are just not going to make profit, and there's nothing nefarious, So you do have to understand that about film distribution. But this was kind of, kind of a Mortal Kombat style / horror / Toxic Avenger sort of thing. So anyway, that's available. You can get that on this one. You can get on actually HD versions on YouTube. So if you just look up VHS Massacre, go to our channel, watch the whole thing there in HD. If you're feeling experimental, you could watch it on Instagram. It's in halves because it's a feature, so it's an hour and 20 minutes. And then we did the same thing on TikTok. And believe it or not, these do really well on TikTok. We did, let me scroll through some of this stuff. We put out, I did a director's cut of London Betty. It was a film that I got some of the rights back to. And it was just a film that I wanted to do something with, but it had been out on Apple TV and Prime for so long. I just didn't think trying to re-release it under my VHS Massacre flag would make much sense. Again, I don't know how well it aged. It was sort of a comedy adventure. I was happy to get the rights back, and what I realized is there was never a 4K version or even HD version of London Betty put out. We shot it on the Canon XL-H1. It was one of the first Canon HD video cameras, the prosumer ones. This was expensive, $8 or $9,000. But we shot a few different films with it. So I was able to take that footage and recut the film a bit and upscale it to 4K. And so you can actually watch the 4K version. Again, it's on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We didn't feel the need. I didn't feel the need to try to go through MVD and for financial reasons. Because of the nature of it being a comedy adventure, I just didn't see a lot of money in it. But this one, This one did have Clint Howard narrating, which I'm a huge fan of Clint Howard, and it actually did have Daniel von Bargen, one of his last films, and he was known. He was in Malcolm in the Middle and Silence of the Lambs, No Brother Where Art Thou, and Seinfeld. One of the biggest things is he was in the last season of Seinfeld, Costanza's boss, Mr. Kruger. So he was a very cool dude. And the way you hire, known actors, celebrities, if you will, or character actors, is that just have your ducks in a row. You have to have your budget in place. You have to have, if there's SAG, you have to fill out the SAG ultra low budget agreement beforehand. You need, when it's shooting, where it's shooting. You get all those things nailed down. So when you're going to an agent, you're saying, I'd like to hire Clint Howard for one day, and this is where we're recording his stuff, and this is what we're paying, And the character actors out there, you never know if they like the material. Maybe they'll do it for a couple grand or something, And for every no, eventually you'll get a yes, and that's just how it works. So this one is about sort of backyard thieves. So anyway, these are two, Fountain of Death and London Betty. These are sort of my little mini director's cuts, but the actual films are still out. London Betty is on Apple TV, and Lana College Prophecy, I think, is on Prime, and maybe Plex, a few other places. So that's just some of the things I've been up to. Here, let me scroll ahead for a second. This is one thing I'm concentrating on. So, long story short, I'm working on a new documentary called Video Dreams. It's about my quest to become a direct-to-video filmmaker. Growing up, one of the most important things was the video store. And a lot of people have dreams of being the next Spielberg, and I can't say I didn't have those dreams, but was almost as good or almost the same to me was being able to make a film, get it nationally distributed or distributed in multiple countries, and getting on the shelf at the video store. To me, that was just as good. Because I grew up in a household, my oldest brother worked in a video store, and he'd bring videos home, but he couldn't bring home like E.T. or Indiana Jones or something. He had to bring home like Alan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold or like a Split Second with Rutger Hauer, or Blind Fury, or Best of the Best with Eric Roberts. So a lot of the films I grew up watching were more B-movie like than the sort of A pictures. And although I liked plenty of A pictures, I grew up appreciating those movies like Toxic Avenger and stuff like that, just as good and just as legit. So, well, this is interesting. So on the film set, London Betty, we had this idea. When I wrote the script, London Betty, it was about a corrupt mayor who builds a carnival in his backyard, and this British reporter who comes to sort of expose the mayor. So when writing it, I thought of a mayor's mansion and then like a carnival in the backyard. Well, we had a $14,000 budget, so we had a $14,000 budget, so we couldn't build all that stuff, right? But so one of the guys working on the film set scouted this place called Wild Bill's, which was like that was more of a it was, I think they sold firecrackers. It was like a roadside attraction, and they had this thing that kind of looked like a carnival. And so what I did was, then there's also this mansion location, and in order to marry the two sets together, what we do is we show Mayor Plum talking about his mansion and the carnival in the backyard. So we see it established through a model that he's going to be building this thing, right? And then what we did is we got these two clowns and we made a sort of gate. So the characters would pass through this gate, and you see there's like a tree here. So you can't really see what's in the backyard. But when they cross the threshold of this gate, then what we do is we bring those clowns to the other location, and when they pass through the gate, then you see this in the backyard. So it looks like the sets are connected. The other thing we do is we go back to the other set, and we have a piece of caution tape, because they're building this carnival, and we're at one location. When the character ducks under the tape, we bring the piece of tape to the second set, and now he's ducking under the other piece of tape. And so that's one technique we can use to marry the two sets together. So we use three different techniques: the clown gate, the model, and the caution tape. And that'll save you about, I mean, think about that. If you were making the Hollywood version, you'd probably build, like Fight Club, they built that old house. They built the whole old house that was falling apart. And so they probably would build the house, and they would build the entire carnival. So that's probably like $1 million that we were able to make a solution for. I think we paid a few $100 to use Wild Bill's, and then the mansion, the great people let us just shoot out in front for free. And all the interiors of the mansion were not in the mansion. Those were all our houses. So whenever it cuts to inside, this is the Rochford's house, like, so that's how we got around all this stuff. So I just thought that was an interesting piece of independent filmmaking. You can find solutions like that. You really just got to use your imagination. In Fountain of Death, there's a few tricks. I wonder if I could bring this up. A few tricks we used. We knew we weren't going to get all the angles we needed. Like, for instance, when this character, Jonah Joe, so that this angle of him looking up, so he's looking up, you see the buckets, he's looking up. Now, our well went down a little bit, about 6 feet, but there's no way we could get an angle like this, and we just needed an angle kind of just looking up at the light. Well, the way, all this is we didn't post, it's like basically construction paper rolled up, and that's pointing at a lamp, and the lamp is just overexposed. Now, I'm telling you now, and you're like, oh, well, that's pretty obvious, but you don't really think of it. He's just looking up at the brightness. And so that's one way we solved that problem. There's another shot here where two characters are fighting, and there's one shot where I like go to throw him down the well. Obviously, we needed to show a shot of him struggling to get out, so it cuts to that shot. If you look, here, I'll try to pause it. If you look, how are you going to get a shot that looks like 20 feet down the well of him struggling to climb up? Well, the way this shot, you don't see much. You see someone struggling and the shot's moving, right? But that is actually at a park. And what I did was had Phil go down a covered slide at the park, and we just shot. It's actually more horizontal than it is purely vertical. It's just him at the park, and the iris is really closed down, so you don't see any details. You can't see that it's like a red slide with seams or anything, and that's how we got that shot. And so the Hollywood way to do it would probably be to spend a fortune and create a whole conduit for that character for that one shot. And our solution was to go to the park. So those are two examples of ways you can solve things for cheap. All right, so that's that. Yeah, and so Video Dreams is going to talk about some of these things that I did. This is Thrill Kill Jack. It's one of the first 80-minute video I did. And then we made short films. And this is my brother Bruce's video store called Fun Stuff back in the day. Where's this one? Actually, this one's Scott's, my cousin's. And then this is From Everything Moves Alone, trying to recreate a military scene. And, I'm not saying we nailed it, right? You concentrate more on the characters' faces than, let's say, the overall environment. They're dressed in military fatigues, and we're not seeing much. This is sort of a flashback. That's another way too, is where you're not seeing. You're a little tighter because you don't have. You can't do a wide shot because again, you're at the park. You're not at a military base. In London Betty, we lit off a lot of firecrackers during the war scene to make it look more visually dynamic. One character comes in and literally just starts throwing firecrackers as a distraction. And so you can work clever things into the plot that makes sense, but then add all this extra production value, like these sparks everywhere in the purple smoke. So it didn't cost. I think it was a couple $100 in fireworks. So, and then the concept of London Betty. There's also these two backyard thieves, and that's something too. I would say this was inspired a little bit by The Following, Christopher Nolan's movie The Following. A suburban house is not that interesting, but and this is our friend's house. I think it was Rich. His last name was Rich, and basically. So you have a house, let's say it's your house, and you have people breaking into it, right? Suddenly it's interesting, right? So you can do very interesting things if you're just a little clever with the plot lines. So that's about it. In just a few months, it's October now, so in November... American Expendables will be hitting Tubi and Prime for free, and honestly, that's when we're really gonna see how many people watch this thing. So it's always exciting to do this kind of thing. We were talking about doing an American Expendables 2. We had a number of ideas for that, and long story short, all we need to do is, rather than concentrating on North American Pictures, we find a different catalog. So we're still looking around for that as something we might be able to do for fun. And that's the other thing too. If you're making your own projects, like I directed VHS Massacre 1 and 2. Those are about the video store era. And they're very popular. If I wanted to, I could make a third one of those. Or I can make an American Expendables 2. And I'm working on Video Dreams. If that's good, I can make a sequel to that. So what's cool about that is you're sort of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. I always wanted to be hired to make a sequel to something. I was the guy who, wanted to make, let me make RoboCop 4. Let me make Puppet Master 20 or whatever they're on now. Let me make Sin City 3, I would love to be able to take on an almost defunct franchise and be able to just really play with it, But that never really happened. But you make your own opportunities. So now I have VHS Massacre 1 and 2. Were considered very well respected. New York Times gave them glowing reviews. 23 awards, almost 30 among both of them. And I could make a sequel to that if I wanted, or a sequel to this one. So it can be done. It doesn't cost that much money. It's time and effort, and you can do it. Whether you're doing, I did a Exorcism of Fleet Marish. That was a feature-length horror film. Exorcism in the Woods type of thing. I mean, you can really do it. That you'll probably need maybe $5 or $6 to make a feature that way, if it's like a narrative horror or something like that. But I think that's great. I would actually recommend it. To a feature like horror, you have a much easier time getting in the festivals, finding distribution, and all that stuff too. One of the first things we did, we made a 16 millimeter comedic drama, and although it is one of the best rated things I've ever done, it didn't make us a penny. So, and it didn't get distribution until probably 15 years after it was released. So, better late than never. And all of those you can watch on Prime and Tubi. So here are some of the other films: Exorcism of Fleet Marriage, VHS Massacre 1 and 2, Len and Betty, Land of College Prophets, Everything Moves Along. Yeah, so they're pretty much all available somewhere, Tubi or Prime. Except American Expendables, because it's free. There's with releases, what they do is they make there's a pay-per-view. The first thing they do when they release a film, there's a pay-per-view period of time where people have to pay $5 or $6 to buy it or rent it, and then after that, then you'll get to the streaming for free, like Tubi with ads and stuff, and Prime with ads. And that's more interesting because a lot more people see it. And then there's a physical release. I think you can do the physical release last, although some people maybe do it first. And we're looking into doing a physical release. We signed a deal, so we should be able to do it, the Blu-ray of American Expendables. So, so I hope this has been useful information. And if you have any questions, just hit me up in the comments. And all right, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.